Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Start Small, Think Big podcast brought to you by Digital Meld. My name is Brad Groux, co-founder and CEO of Digital Meld.
And I'm Robert Groux, co-founder and CTO at Digital Meld.
And Leon Coe, president and founder of Houston AI Club. And I'm the founder of Amplify Intelligence.
Thank you so much for joining us, Leon. We've mentioned you several times because in past podcasts because we're encouraging folks to get involved in their local AI space and their local AI. To go to meetup.com, find people who think like you. And we've used you as an example as, you started Houston AI Club. What's it been, 8 or 9 months at this point?
It's only been 6.
Only been 6. Wow.
First meetup in March. So that we just had our 6th meetup. So it's been absolutely incredible feedback and response from the community, more successful than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, and I've been to several of them so far. It really is. I missed last week's because I was in Dallas-Fort Worth for the DFW Startup Week. And it's just really crazy to see how it's grown and how it's flourished. And the really cool thing I like about it is the eclectic mix of people. There's a lot of students, there's a lot of business folks, there's a lot of people just trying to learn more about AI. It's literally, it's all across the map.
Yeah, I've been totally blown away. We've had as young as high school students who found us on ChatGPT, like searching local meetups in Houston for AI, and came out. And we've had people probably in their 70s or 80s who are like, I'm reading about AI. How do I learn about it? How do I, learn to use it? And, academics, founders, engineers, really just everyone. So we're trying to serve the greater Houston community and really make Houston, something of a AI tech hub, or at least allow the people of Houston to bring AI into the existing massive industries that are already here. So very excited for that.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things, I think wherever community you are, whether you're listening to us now, if there's not one of those groups out there now that you don't have a meetup, go to meetup.com and start something from there. The name of this podcast is Start Small, Think Big. And I think that's probably how Leon approached the Houston AI Club. It's probably 30 or 40 people the first month. And then now you're upwards of 300.
Yeah, we've got over 1,200 followers on Meetup. Our first meetup was actually about 65 people, and we get about 100 each meetup since. So got to keep growing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So take this as a call to action for folks. If there's not one in your area, hey, get started, because I know we'll talk about it further in the conversation with Leon, but I just know that it's become a great networking experience, not just for the folks that attend, but him and his business as well. And we'll get into that.
100%.
All right, so I think we can get started with this conversation. I think we want to focus on what the problems you solve every day, Leon. Obviously, AI models, workflows, and the skills gap every business must solve, right? So, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself, about your company, and about what your day-to-day operations are?
Certainly. So I've been building in AI for almost 10 years now, and the space has changed significantly, maybe more than any industry since then. When I first started, I was kind of on the voice AI side. There was a lot of stuff. Alexa, Google Home were all getting launched, and that was a really, really interesting, compelling space. There's a lot of stuff in chatbots. Conversational AI is kind of like the phrase they used back then. Now every AI is basically conversational AI, so it doesn't really mean anything. But got fortunate in building in that space and started my company in 2017 and sold it at the end of 2022. And so was building in the voice AI space. And, as time kind of grew and as AI matured, I got access to GPT-3, I think in October of 2020. And once GPT-3 came out, it was like everything changed. Now, in hindsight, the worst model today is significantly better than anything GPT-3 could do. But, it's kind of just been this progression of, hey, this thing isn't possible. A new AI model comes out. Now it's possible. Starting with the conversational stuff, and then AI, GPT-3 being able to write more personal messages or just write anything coherent or a story or some semblance of a blog or an outline, to now, AI being able to write fully functional code and power AI agents that are building entire code bases off of pretty simplistic prompts. It's been absolutely incredible. And so right now what I do is I do AI consulting through my company, Amplify Intelligence. Primarily what we do is like advisory and workshops on helping companies reimagine how they can utilize AI across their entire business. And then I also do personal AI coaching sessions with executives and leaders so they can understand and level up their own AI skills and then start to visualize, how can I transform my business and change the expectations and things that people are doing day to day in AI. And I also have a AI assisted development methodology that I've built out to help teams actually adopt the right AI powered coding tools and workflows and prompts and all that stuff.
That's awesome. That's a lot to unpack. I'm trying to figure out where I should go from there. I mean, it's great that you've been in this for so long, because you don't always get to talk to people that have like really been in the trenches even since 2017, right? So that's awesome. I'm curious, what was kind of like the first thing you built where it's like, man, this is gonna be insane as this progresses? What was that first thing for you? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so in February 2021, started building on GPT-3, and now it's kind of like a played out concept. But back then, I had a bunch of buddies who were in sales or SDRs. And before GPT-3, we were trying to build something for sales reps to help them write more personalized messages. Back then you were just getting blasted with spam, or you could basically write like 5 personalized messages a day if you're doing it manually. And when GPT-3 came out, the tool we had, the core concept was, how do we help these SDRs write better, higher quality, faster messages? And it actually flipped on its head, where our proposition became, what if AI could write more human sounding copy or sales messages than humans? And even back then, that proved out to be true. Now the space got hyper competitive. There was tons of investment, and we weren't really interested in competing in that space. But when we launched that product, we were getting incredible response rates, and people were really happy with our human sounding messages. And so that was something that was like a huge, moment. And then a lot of the architectures that we had to build to get any functional product are what allow you to create AI powered workflows today that are more cost effective, faster, and more performant. So I basically taken all these architectures that I built 4 years ago, and when you apply them to the higher quality models today, it's like a completely massive unlock, because the cost has come down significantly. Just as a last point, when we got access to GPT-3, everything was priced per 1,000 tokens. Now it's per million tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was difficult to even come to market with something that was cost competitive, because the cost of the AI was so expensive, versus now, there's models as cheap as 3 cents per million tokens. You could generate stuff all day.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one area I think where we overlap a lot is you love being an evangelist. Obviously, you started Houston AI Club. You love telling people about what's possible. What are you seeing? Are there any trends you're seeing, especially in like a mid-market small business space, with people adopting AI? I gave a talk last week at the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce as an example, and people are just getting their toes. They know they need to use it. They don't really know how to get access to it. How are you hearing folks getting more involved and or trying to dip their toe in? And then also, what would be the best pragmatic approach for them, for small companies, let's say under 100 people, would get started with that?
I think where you have to start, and where I think people, their mindset needs to change, is shifting their mindset from AI as an automation technology to an augmentation technology. So actually move away from very narrow use cases and brittle workflows, and just give your people general access to general purpose AI tools. And what you'll find is, as they familiarize themselves and start to become AI native and AI first workers, those workflows will materialize over the next 3 to 6 months as they start to become comfortable with them. But they're not even comfortable with them. So coming in and just applying and trying to do an automation that ends up being really brittle and everyone's frustrated is kind of the wrong approach. I think you should do general purpose and get them trying things on a daily basis, learning the tools, learning a new way to work, adopting new tools is the best way to really get started. You need to start with a good general purpose tool. If you start with one that's not so good, people will come to hate AI. And I hear a lot of that, of people buying the wrong tools. But that's where I think get started, is start to build up their AI literacy and their AI native skill sets. And not only those workflows will get solved later, but you'll ignite their imagination for new ideas. And that's where the real opportunity is. There's a lot of opportunity in redoing what you're currently doing. Everything big is in doing new things.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious on your side. Are you seeing who's in these smaller businesses, who's typically building this stuff internally? And that's something I always try to think about. And it seems to be there's one champion. There's somebody in the company that's typically a little more technical savvy than others. But curious, who's actually building this that you're seeing, and how are you trying to change that?
The core architect or the core demographic kind of archetype for me is the founders. When you're working with AI, so much works and then something breaks. And the founders on a daily basis are constantly running through walls and just breaking things down. And they're accustomed to that. And so they're the ones who see the upside, see the potential for revolutionizing their company, and have the will and the persistence to push through it after that first little, hey, it built me a whole app, but something doesn't work right, or this button doesn't work. As the founders get more comfortable with that, that's why I say you have to start general purposes. We have to reteach our employees to kind of rebuild that and go from hey, I'm just kind of going through my motions every day at work, to I'm pushing through to solve real problems that have real impact. And founders are always, hopefully, solving real problems with real impact. So AI is completely transformational for them. That's who's really, really big on it today.
Yeah, one area we kind of agree on is like get that general model embedded within the organization and have people rethink how they do things. Like you just said, I was talking to some folks even earlier today. Again, use these tools to learn how to use the tools. That's the big thing about these LLMs. It's the first technology we've ever had that teaches you how to use that technology better, teaches you how to prompt itself better, and those things. And being more business savvy or more business focused, where we generally lean on Microsoft. So Copilot is our lowest barrier of entry, what we say. But we obviously internally, we also use ChatGPT. We love ChatGPT for teams. There's whatever solution you use, I think put it in the hands of people and then show them, have a lunch and learn session, or bring in someone like Leon and show them the power of that tool to help transform their business operations, whether it's just capturing notes or creating meeting agendas or creating business plans or helping with content creation, helping with sales pitches, all those sorts of things. And then, like you said, once you use those tools every single day, it'll slowly get the wheel turning and the light bulbs coming on that, hey, what if we took this and we applied it to our current business operations, right?
100%.
If from that perspective, let's say an organization has taken that on, they've rolled out an LLM internally within the organization, and they're actually doing really, really well with that. Where do you kind of move on from that next step to help transform that business?
Yeah, so obviously it depends on the business, but I think two really low-hanging fruit that are kind of low lift for people to implement, but high impact outside of rolling out Claude or ChatGPT or the general purpose model is speech to text tools for their laptop. So things like Whisperflow and Super Whisper. So these are things that get you away from typing and more talking to your computer. And you might be sitting there thinking, I don't know, it's not really going to make a big difference. Like I'm a fast typer or whatever. It'll make a huge difference. Once you switch to a speech first, voice first type of interface, you'll realize how much friction typing actually has. And this will speed up your emails, your times to create documents, your ability to communicate with AI. Now you're freely giving more context because we're just naturally built to speak and to share stories. And then the complement to that is call recording, meeting recording tools, things like Fireflies or Otter. All of them are basically the same. But it's the backside of this where if you actually start to think about how all these companies operate, you're either meeting in person in meeting rooms, or you're on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, talking. Well, your business already runs on this, right? That's how anyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. The other is email, right? But that's kind of a restricted medium. So if we're already doing all our planning by talking to people, one, it seems pretty natural to just start talking to the computer and saying the same thing. But two, if we're recording that and then passing those transcripts into the computer with our user messages or our requests or our commands, we've got such more context, right? So for example, if we're recording a call, there's no reason why we can't just paste the whole transcript in and say, what are the action items for every person in my company? Okay. Then we get all those action items, take a spot check. Does that look like what we all profess to agree upon on the call? Okay, that looks good. Okay, ChatGPT, now write an email to everyone on the call saying, hey, here's the action items. Does everyone agree this is what we're supposed to be working on? Because I think this pattern goes on in a lot of companies where we get on a call, we all think we're on the same page. We say, okay, we're going to do our work, come back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks goes by. One person worked on the wrong thing. One person forgot. You misinterpreted something someone else said. And now we just wasted 2 weeks, right? You can just take 30 seconds after each call and just level set with everyone. Here's what we need to do. Here's a plan. Have AI create that plan and then get agreement instantaneously. And now everyone has written documentation of here's what I'm supposed to do. It's like extremely low hanging fruit that, might have like a 0.5% GDP impact because people are just eliminating wasted time. I mean, maybe that's an aggressive figure, but I believe recording your calls, you're going to see a transformational effect. And obviously people are concerned about the privacy and consent stuff, and you have to kind of check those boxes, but the upside is absolutely game changing.
Yeah, I always tell people, even just recording calls alone, the amount of ROI you're getting there from like exactly what you're saying. I can't tell you how many times I've had a meeting and you think you know what's going on, and then you go back and listen to the recording 2 or 3 weeks later. It's like, man, I was completely wrong or prompted. And that's one of the reasons why we love Copilot, is because we could prompt with the meeting context only, which is huge in my opinion. I haven't used Otter or any of the others. Do they have tools like that where you can kind of chat with the meetings and have just the meeting context? Or
Yeah, and you can always just copy and paste it into whatever tool you're comfortable with. But it even goes one step further, not just level setting. You can ask it stuff like, what's an opportunity that none of us are thinking about that maybe we should, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting a little creative. We're using our brain power, and we'll find that more often than not, the AI actually has creative opportunities. Or maybe we proposed a particular solution because we're all just kind of riffing on the call, and it's like, hey, actually, if you just reorganize the sequence of events, it'd be much more efficient for everyone. There's so many opportunities with just recording calls. And that's why I say, like, if you have the general purpose tools plus speech to text and recording calls, you're going to get a lot. And that doesn't have anything to do with a narrow use case and workflow, right?
Yeah. And again, Copilot is something we use whenever we have meetings with our potential customers or clients, our partners, we like to call them. It really just does help us make sure we don't miss anything. Like Robert said, a lot of times we're juggling multiple things, we're juggling multiple clients, and like we hear something different on the actual live call. And when we go back and reflect on what was actually said, the expectations were actually different. That's happened. I know for a fact that's happened with Robert and I at least a couple of times in recent months. And the fact that we had that transcript to go back to and chat with was game changing. It was really life saving. And the big thing too is it helps you prepare for future meetings, for all future meetings. Like you said, the beauty of like Copilot is when it's done, it gives you like the tasks at the end, like the next steps, and it lists out who's responsible for those. But even then, if you can ask it, hey, is there a more efficient way that we could tackle this? I haven't even thought of doing that. Based upon what we've talked about, is there a more efficient way we could possibly tackle these tasks? That's another great idea. And again, you don't have that unless you're capturing that context, which is recording those calls, recording those meetings. Copilot, I don't know how I did it without it before, because again, I take meticulous notes whenever I'm taking notes. And so you don't actually pay as much attention to the people you're talking to if you're taking meticulous notes. And so it gives you more time to be present and then to focus on the actual discussion instead of trying to keep track of everything that's being said.
Well, certainly. And it's just a simple math equation, right? Like, how much are we paying for the meeting transcript? Well, one, it's probably rolled into our existing subscription, so it might be functionally free. But two, maybe it's something on the order of a couple pennies. Just like what you said, if you're trying to pay attention or take notes, they're either or. So what a lot of people have is someone sitting in the room on the order of $40 to $100 an hour note taker. So you can either have imperfect notes for $100, or you can have really solid notes and better attention and brain power for functionally free. Like, this should be a complete no-brainer for every company.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with oil and gas, construction, and there's definitely a negative connotation with meeting recordings. I don't know why. It's with those two industries that I've found, and it's across multiple companies. It's not just one. And it's something I'm always beating my head against the wall. I'm like, guys, this is why we need this, because 2 months ago we can't even remember what we were talking about, or you can't remember what somebody else said, right? And then when I try to bring up the value that you're mentioning now, the extra layer of the creativity aspect of it, it starts to click a little bit. But that's the struggle I see, is like this negative feelings towards it. Have you approached, or have people mentioned that to you? And I'm sure they have. And what are you saying? How are you getting them to get their mind to shift a little bit? And I know it's hard and you can't do it in one conversation, but just curious there.
Yeah, all these changes are cultural. Technologically, we could be doing business completely different today. Much more efficient, much more productive, all these things. But, I was giving a presentation yesterday and this type of specific topic on meeting recordings came up. And I said, okay, everyone here, raise your hand if your company doesn't use software. No hands, right? Well, AI models are just like software, with the exception of if they train on your data. Well, everyone who has business agreements and business licenses has opt-outs to training. So now it's just as safe as all your other software. If you're using Microsoft, right, it's just as safe as Teams. In all our emails, all our tasks are already in Teams, in Slack, in Microsoft Office, all the documents we're creating. It's literally the same company. So it's a cultural thing. But once you kind of lay out, okay, that proposition, well, let's say they're like, okay, but I still don't feel comfortable. I want to use a local or an open source LLM and host it, air gap and all of that stuff. You can potentially do that. Cybersecurity is not my specialty, but I think about this from just a purely conceptual level. Who do you trust to keep your data safe? Yourself or Microsoft Azure? Who do you think has more safeguards in place? Who do you think has more resources? And just this past week, both ChatGPT and Claude said they're giving access to all their tools to the federal government. So my argument has been for the past 6 months, and now is even stronger, is if the federal government is adopting these tools and finding safe ways to deploy it, I'm confident we can get creative and do it as well.
Did you tell him to say, I feel like I've heard that exact, like the Microsoft comment. I mean, Brad's been saying that to me for years. And so I was chuckling internally, and it's so true. I mean, I completely agree with it. I know Brad does as well.
Yeah, it's the same argument from the migration to the cloud, right? So I worked at Microsoft and trying to convince people, hey, you can't know security better than Microsoft. You can't. You don't have the footprint. Like, you don't have the telemetry data. You don't have all the access to all the information, all the experts. There's no point in trying to pretend you do. Of course, you still do your due diligence. I'm not saying just throw everything out the window. You still control your data. You uncheck by default with the business agreements, it's unchecked by default, right? So not even something you even need to worry about. But again, like you said, they already own, if you're a Microsoft 365 customer, they already own everything. Them capturing that meeting recording doesn't really change anything. And you chatting with an LLM, like, even if you don't chat with the LLM and you record the meeting, they still have the transcript. Like, there's nothing special. So I think we are like you said, it is cultural, and it's just over time. I think that's the big thing. Give people this general access. And once they learn that they can free up so much time to do things that are more meaningful, that it's going to be from the top down that say, hey, why aren't we doing things smarter? Why are we trying to do that? And the big thing I try to tell people too is, if you don't adopt these tools, it doesn't matter, because your competitors are, and you're going to have to adapt as soon as they adapt, or otherwise you're going to get left behind.
And even with the smaller tools, once again, this is not 2004. It's not like the startups you're using have servers in their closet. They're using AWS, they're using Azure, they're using all the stuff that powers what you use anyways. So once again, you have to be smart, you have to be safe with it. Culturally, I think the risks are very likely massively overblown, and they're leaving a lot on the table. That's just the conversation that I try to show people. And it's very difficult until you're actually using it. If you're just recording calls and doing nothing with it, then, what's the purpose? Once you start asking those questions, getting those to-dos, seeing how much more efficient and clear communication your team is, then you'll be like you said, how could I ever live without this? I couldn't.
And here's the reality. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where everything's recorded and you don't even know, because there's going to be these devices. There already is. The Meta glasses are out. People know that those exist, right? But there's going to be a product developed. There's rumors that OpenAI is developing something. Somebody else is going to create, a pen or whatever it is, right? And unfortunately, if you're a privacy advocate, I somewhat am a little bit. It's just the way this is going to go. And so I think if you're not comfortable recording meetings, well, buckle up, because one, you're already being recorded anywhere in public typically today with cameras and just all the technology they have now, and it's only going to get worse. So I would say have an open mind and try it out for sure.
Yeah, and there's an old quote, and someone's talking about someone. It's like it seems like you're very against these technological changes. He's like, yeah, I am, and they're like, but you still use it, and he's like, well, it's not going anywhere, so I might as well at least get the benefit.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing too, is this is coming, this revolution's coming whether you want to or not. So you can either kick and scream, or you can get on board. And I had a conversation with someone yesterday on another podcast. I was a guest on another podcast, and he said that his daughter was like terrified of what's going to happen with AI. But she had gone and done a ton of research that most people hadn't done about AI. And I told him, like, she just needs to change her framing. Like, she knows more about AI than probably 95% of the people, because she's cared about what's the future of humanity and like what's happening to our people and like, and those sorts of things. And like, so, hey, use that knowledge to help transform this, to help lift up people, to help focus on what's positive and the things that are coming. And I think that's where I hope for everybody gets out of this is like, yes, people are going to lose their jobs, but also jobs are going to be created. Yes, it's no different than any other technology before it. At the same time, the beauty of this is the first technology that you can learn using that technology. You can say, hey, I do this and I have 6 months to upskill and I have 2 hours spare time a week. Please create a 6-month plan for me, and it'll give you that plan, and it'll give you a pretty good roadmap to do that. There's really no excuses. You do have the world at your fingertips if you have access to these tools. And if you're listening to this podcast, you have access to those tools because they're on the internet and they're free to get started, so there's really no reason.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just more fun. It's a more fun, more creative, more free way of working. I've never been this productive, this creative in my life. And I think people are going to, like you said, view it in a negative light. Once you start to adopt them and start to see what's possible, everyone at home has 3 ideas, 5 ideas, 10 ideas for businesses that they wanted to do or products. And they don't have to be the next $1 billion app. But if you can actually build that yourself, which you can now, that's huge. That's a huge game changer. It's a huge confidence booster. We are really close to the world of truly, like, if you can think it, you can build it. And that's really completely transformational.
Yeah, creativity is going to be key for the future because anybody's going to be able to build anything at some point. We're not there yet. I know a lot of technical people I know that follow this podcast will laugh at me for saying that, but eventually it's going to get to that point where coding is not as important as it used to be. And it's already getting there. As somebody like me who knows how to develop a little bit, has write 100-line scripts and did some Java programs in my earlier days, but that was it. And now I can go and develop a full-fledged web app or a single application just for my personal use, like recording my personal notes and transcribing them just locally on my computer. Because I did have those privacy concerns that you were mentioning. I was like, hey, let's put this on there, right? And put it together in an hour. And hey, it's not perfect, but I don't have to pay $50 a month now.
Exactly.
And eventually that's going to get easier and easier for the person that doesn't even know what coding is, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
It's already happening. Like, people can go, the tools are getting good enough that you can do like basic video games. Like, you can go make a flying video game and things. And people have done this. It's one-shotting an app or one-shotting video games. Obviously, it's not something you're going to put in production for your business, but that just shows you what's going to happen. If you have an idea, I think the big thing in the future is being an idea person, but also being someone who can see it through. Because ideas are a dime a dozen. It's having that grit and determination to see it through and see it to the completion. That's going to be really the differentiator going forward. I know you work with a lot of business leaders. You do one-on-one training sessions with them. That's one area we see the disconnect with the businesses we talk to. The leadership has a completely different understanding a lot of times of what the day-to-day hurdles and struggles of the boots on the ground, what we like to call the folks on the ground, and top down does work in a lot of ways. Like, I do think it needs to be a cultural shift. What I do think for the most part is the AI adoption is from the top down. At the same time, trying to force square peg through a round hole isn't always great either. And so, how do you approach teaching leaders how to see these tools as an opportunity to improve their business, but also to make sure that they don't skip a bunch of steps and then just not even talk to the folks who are actually dealing with the day-to-day problems?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, this is 100% cultural problem. And if you hear about AI and you're like, I'm going to cut my business and slash it and blah, 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 and then that's how you roll it out, one, it's going to be a very sloppy rollout. But two, you're going to instill a culture of fear across all your people. If you have a reasoned approach to legitimately wanting to enhance the creative potential of your people, and you communicate that and you support them with the resources and the training and saying, we're investing in your tools, we're increasing our cost, right, to make you more effective, to make you more productive, to be able to do things easier and faster, then that to me is the right approach. And that's why I named the company Amplify Intelligence. Is my belief is there has to be a human intelligence guiding this and assisting in the creation of these things. And so, my solution personally is to increase the creative and productive potential of all these individuals. So now it it doesn't make sense to let people go and to fire them and get rid of their roles. They're actually so creative, you're getting a fantastic deal on their salary. And fortunately, the AI tools and software has always been incredibly cheap relative to labor. So if this tool takes people and makes them bigger and better and faster, then we should be investing even more in that tool, because the salaries are not going to, disproportionately blow out of the water. We're not proposing that these people's salaries are going to go up 5x or whatever, but their potential creative ability and impact potentially very much can. And so if you're a company of 10 people and your people can now ship product features faster and build more applications and build new service lines and features that bring in more revenue, you're going to see, fantastic financial results from that investment.
Yeah, I think that's a really important way to do it. We upskilling is really, we say it all the time. The hardest thing to do is to hire good people,
Of
and
course.
we hope that basically what you're doing is you're freeing up your people to do the more meaningful work. You're just freeing up the repetitive tasks, the more mundane tasks, to do the things that are more meaningful. We've mentioned it several times, like taking someone that's mainly doing accounts payable manual data entry and like transitioning them to chasing RFPs or trying to win more bids. That kind of transition can happen all across your organization. So someone who's in accounting, for example, can free up to do more business development work, like because they understand the finances of the business. So that gives them a unique perspective of how they can increase the business operations and business development aspect of things too. So that's the good thing. I think folks need to realize that while these tools are going to change a lot of jobs, they're going to create a lot of new opportunities too. And you as an individual can take the initiative to learn these things on your own too. You don't have to wait for the top down initiative for you to do these things. Maybe they won't enable it for you internally at your company, but you can still use these tools privately and personally to upskill yourself to be prepared for whenever that does happen, and work in a sandbox mode of kind of like mimic what you're trying to do with the day-to-day operations. And then, hey, if you create something really cool, take it to your teammate and say, hey, here's what I did. What do you guys think about this? And then build that groundswell internally as well.
Yeah, you have to kind of remove the limiters of your mind. And I don't believe in this world where there's companies of one person or companies of zero people. Those concepts don't make sense to me. So if companies have employees, some employees are more valuable, or some skill sets are more valuable than others. And every company right now wants hardworking people, honest people, creative people, innovative people who know how to use AI. So if you're the guy in your company that knows how to use AI the best and understand the company and understand your customers' problems, I think you're going to be pretty safe and end up in a pretty lucrative position, whether that's within your existing company, a new one, or starting your own. Because that's the other thing that AI is breaking down the barriers of, a massive wave of small business entrepreneurship, of people being able to really take their slice of what they know in their past experiences and offer it to so many more companies than they could previously service. And you don't need full accounting and HR teams and bookkeeping and all these ancillary administrative services. With contractors, with software, with AI, you're able to do more as an individual and service more clients more effectively. So, at the end of the day, someone has to be the best person at every company at AI. And people are just getting into it and they're not investing in it as aggressively as they could or they should be. And there's no reason that person couldn't or shouldn't be you, right? That's certainly the safest avenue that I see.
Yeah, and I think some of the topics we've discussed, what I've figured out, education is a huge part of this, and that's a huge part of your business and what you do. And this is a little selfish question. I have 3 kids. My oldest just is in kindergarten today, his first day. So, and I've been toying with this in my head the last 2 years of like, man, how do I get my kids involved? How do I get them to embrace this technology? Because I talk to parents all the time. It's not even on their mind. They're not even thinking about it. And to me, that's a huge problem with the way this world is going to go, because people need to embrace this even at a very early age. And so I'm curious, any advice there? And if I don't know if you have kids, if you do, I'd love some advice just as far as how to get younger people entrenched in this stuff. Because I think once they do, they'll love it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this for the past 5 years. I've got one son and one on the way. And so, yeah, I think about this all the time. I don't think the schools are properly equipped to take advantage of this. I think, the videos and the screens are a pretty big negative for attention span. I think that there's, to be an effective parent today, you have to be proactive and you have to go, do more than what they're getting in the schooling system. And the fortunate thing is like AI can, one of the first things I did in 2020 was like create lesson plans. Well, you can create lesson plans amenable to kids. I'm working with someone that is creating applications for kids to go to museums and have an interactive experience. All of this completely vibe coded. She had no previous technical experience and was able to, you take a picture of the artwork and then AI not only generates a story, but also speaks it back to you based on your kid's age range and makes it more engaging. And the reality is these kids are they're going to want to be engaged by screens different than, people growing up just with dial-up internet and books, right? The dopamine level's a little bit different, so you got to adjust that. But at the end of the day, there's really no substitute for core critical thinking skills, for attention management, for business fundamentals, all of these core skills, language comprehension, all the things that the schools, math. Like if you just lay everything out and you go, okay, society is saying if everyone has access to AI, none of those things matter. And then if you in your practical life go, someone knows more than me on a subject, they're clearly getting better out of AI, I think that is durable, right? And so the people that are smarter and better equipped are going to be able to use AI more to their advantage. They know more of what's possible. That's why vocabulary at an early age for kids is so very, very important, because as you increase the world of possibilities to children, they're able to create new concepts and combine things on their own. That's the world of AI, 100%. And those are the people that are really successful, right? Many founders are multi-time founders in different industries. And so they take an idea from one industry, it to a new customer in another, and then using AI are allowed to build it to a higher level. And so I think parents have to have a very proactive approach from an early age of allowing their kids to use AI, or not allowing their kids to use AI, but the parents themselves using AI to assist in teaching, explaining concepts. Like Brad said all throughout, AI can teach you things. I know a lot of parents have sweated, the 7th, 8th grade math kind of years, getting up into high school. One day I'll probably be sweating that too, but I'll be able to go into AI and say, hey, explain differential calculus to me like I'm a dummy. And it'll probably do it. And it'll probably come right back. And I'll be able to kind of explain it with analogies and learn things. So that's kind of, my kind of take on kids and education. And you have to be a self-directed learner and a lifelong learner. You can't be thinking static. That's a good thing. Kids are always learning new things just naturally. Sometimes that kind of regresses as we get older. AI is forcing us back into that world where we constantly have to be learning new things. And that's a tough muscle for people to get back if you've kind of atrophied.
Yeah, DiffEQ made me irk a little bit. That was a tough class for me in college. That was no fun in doing like a whole page problem and getting it wrong and spending an hour on it.
Sure.
So yeah, absolutely. I wish I had tools like this at that time for sure, because that would have absolutely helped. So
Well,
that was really good.
Make things more targeted, right?
Yeah.
Do I really think everyone needs DiffEQ? I don't know about that. Clearly we haven't been using it in quite some time. So maybe a week on that, and then 5 weeks on how to, build an income statement or something like that might be a little bit more targeted. And you can now tangibly do that as a complement or as a substitute to the typical schooling that your children are getting. And the lift is not, I am a PhD in math. The lift is like, I'm a guy who knows how to use AI.
Yeah, but I think the voice is a good part. That's kind of where I've got my kids involved. If they have a question about something, I'm like, oh, hey, I don't know the answer. Let's figure it out and pull this thing out. And sometimes I'll ask it, sometimes they'll ask it. And then just getting that base level there, that's kind of how I've been approaching it. And then I think the school stuff is huge. I'll definitely be using that for sure.
Yep. And I think one of the key areas that people may overlook is teachers are some of the smartest, brightest, most ingenious, and working with the shoestring budget kind of folks. And I think what they'll start doing is building these curated curriculums based upon the needs of that specific student, right? And that specific child. Like you'll have some that are more visual learners or maybe need a little bit more access here or access there. And hopefully these tools can help them shape the curriculum specific to each student rather than just a one size fits all, which you kind of alluded to, Leon. But I think that's a really cool thing from a younger perspective. And so I see these tools as, like you said, being a lifelong learner. You have the ability. I have conversations with ChatGPT and Perplexity and all the time, just as I'm driving or whatever, just because, hey, let's learn something new today. And I think the kids are growing up with that now, so it's going to be second nature to them. But for us, it's like, hey, we have to train ourselves to do. Cool. So now that we've talked about some pragmatic and practical ways to approach AI in a business, we've talked about leadership, how they can hopefully drive adoption. What are some ways that you immediately go to a business to say, like, whether process automation or improvement or things to help them improve their overall output once they've actually taken the 6 months to get people using these LLMs and such?
I mean, the first place to start in any business, and it sounds simplistic, but I think a lot of people like to think or imagine, okay, I know what AI can do and I know what this workflow looks like, so let's put AI there, right? And that seems pretty reasonable, intuitive, but really the best place is to go pull up your financials and go, where do we spend the most money, right? Start with where you spend the most money, and don't even have to think about workflows. Just start thinking like, if we had to cut costs significantly on day one, how will we do things differently? Try to find the non-essential things that we're doing, and then find ways where AI can kind of plug in and help the people doing those tasks to do them much faster. A big thing for people and an easy low-hanging fruit is quarterly reports and stuff like that. Well, first question I ask is, why are they quarterly? Well, it's quarterly because, we get these financials in March, but we don't actually get the full data in until April. And then someone's got to look at them and, write 20 pages of writing, not using AI to parse and figure out what's important, what's relevant. A lot of what we do today, in the frequency of what we do it, is because the time it takes a human to read and reason about it and look at it from an analytical lens and do all their other tasks is the barrier. Well, if we put AI at the front of those types of things and then are handing people already analyzed documents, and teaching AI the principles of how we're analyzing them, we're going to be able to access data much closer to real time. Because once again, if they're doing quarterly reports and that's taking more time, we're actually going weeks or months with bad data and with poor decision making. We can't be adaptable because we have all these processes in place that take too long. So that's a great place where AI can work. I'm working with someone who is doing something similar in like the data visualization space in real estate. And, they have a lot of issues with reporting where you don't find out you missed your quota until 3 weeks after the month is already closed, right? Well, now with the stuff that he's doing, they're able to basically look in real time at what the trends are and then send out notifications to the people on the ground at the apartment complexes and the facilities saying, hey, things are not looking right. Should we be doing something different? Should we be running a special? Should we be, more aggressive in changing our pricing or giving discounts? So they can make these changes in real time to their company to actually meaningfully change their profit and loss. So, I mean, that's how I kind of go. And once again, once you expand your mind away from automation mind into pure business fundamentals, and this is another tool, we start to become more creative with the solutions that have higher impact.
Yeah, I think this. Sorry, Brad. I think this agent wave is kind of mess with people's minds a little bit. Talking about the automation thing, right? This is the year of the agents, and I think when all these experts were saying that last year, they didn't realize a bunch of marketing people would take over that term and just use and abuse it, right? And so that's a lot of what I see on the market. You go to LinkedIn or you go on social media. There's all these N8N build outs, and you kind of drill into it, and it's like, guys, we've been able to do this for 5 years. This is nothing special. And so I think taking yourself out of the automation piece is a big thing. That's something I even struggle with myself. And so that's a good comment there.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get down to the fundamentals. Like you said, that's what we like to focus on. What problem are you trying to solve? What issues are the most glaring? And then we figure out what the best tool and or best process to fix that. It may not be automation, it may not be AI, it may just be communication and then turn on with your organization. We tell people all the time, they're the experts. We just know the tools. Like they're the experts, and if they have the business acumen, they have the experience, they have the business intelligence that from the years and years and years of working in that area. We just know how to use those tools in that area. So they're always going to be the experts in it, and they need to trust themselves in that, and then know that they can use these tools to punch above their weight class, like we like to say. So that's awesome. I think we could probably keep talking for hours and hours and hours, but I know you're a very busy person. So as we wrap this up, we kind of like to end with just like a rapid fire round, just a handful of questions for you to answer really quickly to kind of give people some nuggets to go off. Is that all right?
Of course, let's do it.
So, you kind of, our first question was first AI tool you recommend to every SMB. I think I know what this one is, but go for it.
Yeah. For me personally, it's Claude. I think Claude is really, really great. It's a great general purpose model. It probably has the best coding model. And with your Claude subscriptions, you get access to Claude Code through that subscription. So you're kind of getting all the best general purpose and the best coding tool on the market. So I think it just covers the widest amount of bases, and it can do writing at a high level. It can do social media stuff at a high level. It can do programming stuff at a high level for $20 a month just to enter the market. That really, in my opinion, can't be beat.
Awesome. What's the most overrated AI trend right now?
For me, it's going to be fine tuning. I have a lot of qualms with fine tuning. I think a lot of people think that they need to fine tune when they need to really prompt better or pick a different model or build AI system. Also, as we all should know, the models are the thing that's increasing most aggressively in the industry. When you fine tune, you pick a model and commit to it and allocate resources to it. Then you introduce new security liability issues. And the reality is you need a lot of data to fine tune, which you probably don't have. Then you need the people who know how to do fine tuning at a high level, which once again, you probably don't have. And then the net benefits of fine tuning, it's not like you can take something that doesn't work and take it to a place that works. You're more probably just eking out percentages, which, if you're something like a V0 or Cursor, sure, you can fine tune stuff. You know what you're doing, hundreds of millions of data points, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty anti fine tuning, especially for small businesses. You don't need that yet. So that's my take on fine tuning.
That's a great point. For folks that don't know, ChatGPT or OpenAI released GPT-5, which basically bundled up all their previous models into one big model, and that ruined a lot of stuff for a lot of people. They've rolled back a little bit of that. 4.0 has returned, but if you're building these solutions and you're fine tuning on top of them, and if you're building a SaaS app that's just a wrapper for that, you don't have any secret sauce, then whenever they make these big changes, you're going to break some things. And so I agree with that completely. That's a great one. So for next up, what's your favorite non-mainstream AI app or workflow? What's a diamond in the rough out there that not a lot of folks have heard of?
Yeah, like I said previously, Whisperflow, I don't see people using it that much. The speech to text is just such a big advantage. I can pull up my profile now, but I've done over the past 24 weeks, 95,000 words. Okay. But it tells me at 141 words per minute. So I don't know about y'all, but you're probably not typing at 141 words per minute. And so it's just a free, easy way to speak into the computer to get all that context out, all that information out. It's the best way to really talk with AI because they're tuned on chats and conversations as well. So I actually find the performance of my prompts to be better when just for general use cases, when you're just speaking into the AI and getting your core idea out. And I don't see a ton of people using that, but I think it's a really low lift way of doing it. And all it does is it just replaces the function key, which you never use anyways on your laptop. So you just press it or double click it, just start talking and then click it again. And it's super fast. So by the time that you click it, you wait 1 second and then your paragraph of text appears in any application you're using on your Mac. So I'm a big WhisperFlow fan. I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. I'll have to check that one out. Haven't heard of that one. What's one AI task or thing an SMB needs to implement this quarter or as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think in terms of, like we talked about previously, there's a old phrase. So in the early days of kind of like the internet, there is, I think, a guy, maybe Harvard or Harvard Business Review or something, he wrote a book, and he has a phrase or a title of one of his chapters, "Don't automate, obliterate." And I think it's what we talked about previously. Like, don't even think about automating a specific task. I don't know your business, you know your business, but take a look at something and just pretend like the budget just gets slashed to like 30%. What are we going to do? What are the essentials? How can AI help us get only the essentials done? And then just bring that back up to whatever level. And next thing you know, you've got a lot of profits to work with. So I would say just really like take a deep dive into your financials and the fundamentals of your business, and then start asking, like, if we could cut this cost significantly, or we could do this way faster, this would actually be transformational. And then start trying to build AI workflows or systems around that, because that's going to have the highest impact anyways. Versus if you're coming in and saying, oh, we can automate presentations, or we don't have to write social media blogs. It's like, okay, what's the net impact of that? Like, sure, we're doing things faster for people. We can do that stuff later. Like, let's do the big stuff now. Let's try to tackle something really significant. That's kind of my perspective on like how SMBs especially should be thinking about it. Or think about how many customers or prospects you reach out to today. How would your business look differently if you had to 10x the number of relationships or prospects? What would you do? Okay, well, we definitely can't do that by scaling manpower. Like, we can't hire that many people. We can't train them. We can't outreach them. We're going to have to change up our strategy somehow. So how can AI help us facilitate each sales rep having double or triple or 10 times the number of real relationships through better context or automated reminders or some sort of, task that allows them to build more real relationships with people? That's something that I see personally is meeting all these people, especially with the Houston AI Club, is, it's difficult to manage all those relationships and remember faces and names and what they're working on and what they're trying to accomplish. But if I can go back and take notes and then have all my notes in one place and have AI say, who should I be talking to? Who do I think needs this service? You can have it troll through your old data because you already have that existing data and say, what's an opportunity or a service offering based on the things we currently offer that might make sense for them, and have it kind of create a new action plan to generate a lot more revenue from old clients or old prospects you haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah, that's great. One of my favorite quotes, again, for all as well, is Elon Musk. He says the best process is no process. And so you're always looking to obliterate something. Again, processes are very important. We're not saying that that's not the case, but maybe that's not the place to start. And so I really like that as well. So finally, we have one more. The biggest myth you hear about AI in small business space today.
Yeah, this is going to be a controversial one, but my answer for this, I talk to people and they're kind of interested or maybe interested in doing some workshops, but I'll hear the objection. Are people use AI well? That one's hard to believe. I don't know if anyone's using AI to its maximum capability. And it's difficult because you have to have a lot of imagination, a lot of creativity, a lot of experience with these tools. But if you think your people are using AI well, even people who are coding or developers, a lot of them don't have custom prompts, don't have custom modes, aren't using the best models, right? Like, you could really benefit from having someone come in and take a look at your tools and processes. You might just be, 4 prompts away from 10 times better blog post, right? Those are simple, small impacts, small implementations that have a big impact, but most people aren't very good at prompt engineering. The AI landscape of applications is changing every day. So your job, like you said, is not to stay on top of the latest and greatest in AI. That's kind of our role. And so we're going to be able to kind of help shepherd you through, hey, are you actually using this to the maximum potential? And once again, unless you've got AI agents running and doing stuff in the background and selling for you and writing all your code, you're not using AI to its full potential. And you don't have to get massive impact. But if you're limiting yourself on the AI adoption just because everyone has Copilot, you're leaving a lot on the table, just like we talked about with call transcripts, with speech to text, with agents and everything.
Yeah, I think that's all great advice. And again, thank you so much for taking part in this conversation. Again, we could talk for days, I think, but you're a very, very busy person, and we're approaching an hour here. So thank you again for taking part. And for everybody listening, if you want to get a hold of Leon and ever see everything he's doing, we will provide all his links to everything he's working on in the show notes, as well as the newsletter on LinkedIn. Just hit up linktree.com/digitalmeld. You'll get access to the podcast and or the newsletter from there. And then now, Leon, again, thanks for joining us. We're just going to open the floor to you for 2 or 3 minutes. Let folks know about Houston AI Club. Let folks know about Amplify Intelligence or anything else you'd like to let us know about.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, HoustonAIClub.com. We do monthly meetups the first Thursday of every month. So the next one is September 4th. And then every first Thursday after that. So just pull up a calendar. We'll be there. We meet downtown at the Esperson building. We also are starting to experiment with, one-off events. So if you go to meetup.com and search Houston AI Club, you'll find some of our other events. We've got one on data management and analytics for AI. That's going to be a panel. And then another one, Genesis and Gen AI, which is taking a look at AI from a faith-based perspective and understanding the implications, the moral implications, raising kids in a world of AI. So that's going to be one that's really exciting. Both of those are in August. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Leon Coe. And then, yeah, like I said, if your company is interested in taking a hard look at what it's doing and how it wants to implement AI in a way that's really going to transform their business, amplifyintelligence.ai. So thank you all for having me.
Robert, any final words?
No, I think, Leon, this was a great conversation. Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
And if you can, try to get an event up here in the Woodlands. I know it's not Houston, but I always tell Brad, I'm like, man, I got to drive 50 minutes, but that's what I get for living where I live, right?
Houston's a big city, so we got to make it work wherever we can.
Yeah.
And so my call to action to the listeners is please visit linktree.com/digitalmeld. Hit up the newsletter. We'll have all the resources we talk about here, Whisperflow and all the other great things that Leon's brought us today that, even Robert and I weren't aware of. And then links to, obviously, to Houston AI Club and to Amplify Intelligence, everything what we've talked about. And then we'll also provide a nice write-up for you to have. Generally, we have 15 or 20 resources every time, so check out that newsletter. It comes out every Monday on LinkedIn. Also, please share this podcast with anybody who you think would love to learn about AI. And then please rate it and or share it and subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Until then, we appreciate you for taking part and on this wild journey that is AI. We like to say we're creating the cult of AI, jokingly. But I think with all the people out there doing great things with it, I think we'll be just fine. And so until next week, appreciate you.
Yep. Bye.
We want to hear about your AI and automation journey, and we'd love for you to get involved with Start Small, Think Big. If you'd like to participate or offer feedback, please reach out to us anytime via email at contact@digitalmeld.io or use the contact form on our website, digitalmeld.io/contact. Also, please help spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing our podcasts on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks.